Hey guys, tonight we tiptoe into a part of history that's rarely in your textbooks. What getting high felt like in medieval times. You're not a knight or a noble. You're not even an apprentice. You're just you. And tonight, you find yourself wandering through a garden so fragrant and strange, it almost feels like it's humming. Lavender teases your nose, but behind it, something muskier, stronger, earthy, almost illegal smelling. You pause. There's a vine curling around a wooden trellis, and its leaves look familiar. This isn't your average veggie patch. You're in the monastery's physic garden, where monks in robes tend to beds of wormwood, mugwort, and something that very suspiciously resembles cannabis sativa. You're not hallucinating, yet. Monks did grow it. Maybe not to blaze up like a Renaissance Snoop Dogg, but for textiles, for rope, for medicine, and, whispers say, for dreams. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch beside the herb beds, brushing your fingers over fuzzy leaves, and the air gets thick. You blink and realize a monk is standing beside you. His hood is drawn, but he's smiling, not stern, not angry. Looking for clarity? He asks, voice like dust and honey. He offers you a sprig of something with purplish buds and a smell like sage mixed with sharp pepper. You sniff, cough, then accept the cup he offers, steaming liquid, green as envy. Tea, he says, though it tastes like a dare. A warm flush spreads from your belly. Your fingers go a little numb. The sunlight feels syrupy. Now here's the reality check. Most medieval folk didn't sip recreational tea between hymnals. You probably wouldn't survive this scene. Hygiene? Questionable. Parasites? Frequent flyers. But still, people sought escape. A world of pain needed a world of remedies. And some remedies just happened to bend reality a little sideways. Your feet move without thinking now, weaving between lavender stalks and crushed mint underfoot. The monk leads you to a bench. He sits, folds his hands, and begins chanting. Not loudly, but steadily. Your breath slows to match his rhythm. Your eyelids droop. The stone under your thighs feels kind of soft. Fun historical fact. Monasteries were often centers of medical knowledge. Monks copied herbals, brewed tonics, and ran infirmaries. But the line between cure and trip was blurry. Mugwort, for example, used to ease menstrual cramps and, according to folklore, help one dream of the future. Modern science knows it as a mild hallucinogen when taken in large quantities, which, of course, medieval dosing instructions rarely clarified. You stare into the ivy wall across from you. It's not moving, right? No, it definitely just blinked. You try to look at the monk again, but now he has wings. Angelic wings. They shimmer. Or maybe that's just your eyeballs rebelling. Historians still argue whether monks use certain herbs deliberately for visionary purposes, or merely as part of standard apothecary work. What's certain is that spiritual experiences were common, and if some holy visions were helped along by pharmacological shortcuts, well, God works in mysterious and sometimes mildly narcotic ways. The garden's colors shift slightly. Your peripheral vision sparkles like a dusty tapestry in candlelight. A bee hovers over your knee and you swear it mutters, "Repent." You swat it away gently, half chuckling. The monk is humming now. You hum along. Let's not forget, many of these herbs had strong religious associations. Rue to ward off evil, valerian to calm the body before prayers, and hemp? Well, that one's complicated. Found in archaeological digs across Europe, sometimes in burial urns, sometimes stored in monastic cellars. Not necessarily for parties, but not for parties either. Back in the garden, the sun is going pink. The monk hands you a small woven pouch. Keep it close when you sleep, he says, for soft dreams. Inside, dried flowers, lavender, rose, maybe poppy petals. You thank him, your voice a murmur. You stretch. The garden tilts slightly, as if the earth just remembered it's a ball spinning in space. You catch yourself on the bench. You're okay, just humming, light as air. Here's your quirky tidbit. Some medieval folks believed that just smelling certain herbs could induce visions. That's right. No brewing, no eating. Just inhale deeply and let the rosemary take the wheel. The monk stands. You'll want to drink water, he advises, already walking away. Lots of it. You nod, the words floating through you like dandelion fluff. You'll drink something, later, maybe. You lean back into the bench. The stars are just beginning to peek out, bold and a little smug. You whisper to no one. I think I understand the universe. A firefly blinks once in what you interpret as agreement. And somewhere in the corner of your mind, one tiny rational part of you wonders, was that really just tea? The bench creaks as you rise, legs still uncertain, vision a little soft at the edges, like you've smeared candle wax on your eyes. You follow the winding path out of the monastic garden, the air now thick with dusk and crushed mint. As the monastery walls vanish behind you, the scent shifts again, something sharper, pungent, almost floral, but darker. You find yourself drawn to the cloister, where evening prayers have ended and the monks are retreating into their cells. Except one. He lingers at a corner, near a small wooden door you hadn't noticed earlier. He gestures silently. You follow him, of course, because why not? You've already made friends with a hallucinating bee and tea that turned your fingers into noodles. Inside, the room is small, round, candlelit. Stone shelves hug the wall, each lined with little pots and stoppered glass vials. The air hums with something sweet and metallic. The monk nods toward a small stool. You sit, no questions. There's a trust between you now, maybe chemical, maybe spiritual. He opens a jar filled with what looks like tree sap. He scoops out a pale lump and begins warming it over a candle. Soon, it oozes, thick, amber, and fragrant. You're handed a tiny silver spoon of it, no bigger than your pinky nail. You taste it. Bitter, then sweet, then gone. But your body knows. It spreads like warmth across your chest and seeps upward. You feel your pulse in your eyelids. Poppy. You've just tasted opium. Opium in medieval Europe. Oh yes. Known as the Barnum or poppy tears, it was imported from the East, though also grown locally in garden patches behind abbeys. Used to dull pain, ease sleep, calm digestion, and if taken a little too liberally, send you waltzing through your own consciousness. Mainstream fact. By the 12th century, apothecaries in cities like Salerno and Montpellier had well-documented uses for poppy-based tinctures, often mixed with vinegar or wine. Medieval physicians weren't naive. They knew it worked, and they knew it sometimes worked too well. The room flickers. The candle flame dances like it's trying to tell a joke. Your arms feel long. Your shoulders drift backward into the wall. You're still upright, technically, but you've gone soft, boneless. The monk has vanished from your vision, or perhaps he's just melted into the shadows. Your thoughts slow. You wonder if you're still breathing. You are, but your body doesn't seem in a hurry about it. A warm hush settles over your bones. Fringe tidbit. Some medieval recipes for pain relief involved grinding dried poppy pods with crushed pearls and wrapping them in beeswax before heating. That's right, beeswax opium pills. Very artisanal, very Etsy. Time has turned fuzzy. You see your own thoughts like animals walking in the distance, too far to name, but familiar in shape. A deer made of sorrow, a bird stitched from lullabies. And here's the twist. This wasn't necessarily considered sinful. Sure, Abusing the stuff could get you a stern lecture and possibly exorcism, but controlled use, that was medicine, salvation even. Suffering was to be soothed, not celebrated. And if God put the poppy on earth, who were you to waste it? Historians still argue whether common folk had regular access to opiates, or if they remained locked behind monastery doors and noble gates. Some think traveling merchants sold diluted versions in marketplaces. Others believe only the educated elite could afford true poppy extract, kept carefully measured by monks and medics. In this moment, though, you're not thinking about class systems. You're thinking about how your hand doesn't feel like it belongs to you anymore. You wave it gently and watch it ripple like a curtain underwater. You murmur, "I'm a candle." Not sure why, but it makes perfect sense. You're not asleep, not dreaming, just somewhere else. The room feels like velvet. Sounds arrive late, as though they had to walk uphill to reach you. There's movement. A monk returns, perhaps. He offers you water. You sip. It tastes like winter and bells. You try to thank him, but all that comes out is a sigh with a grin inside it. Did medieval folks chase highs? Not like we think of it now. There were no rave tents in the cloisters. But euphoria, relief, the ability to feel anything other than toothache, heartbreak, and war trauma. Oh, they chased that with both hands. You lie back now, not on a bed, but a padded bench. Your limbs feel so cooperative, so loyal. You thank them silently. The candle guttering beside you becomes your entire universe for a moment. It flickers in rhythms that feel like language. And just when you think you might drift into permanent jelly, the monk claps softly, once, just enough to pull your mind from the abyss. He hands you a warm cloth. "Your visit is ending," he says gently. You sit up. Somehow, the world reassembles. It's not quite the same shape you left it in. Your skin is a sweater 2 sizes too big, but you're here. As you shuffle toward the exit, you catch sight of a small wooden sign above the doorframe. Latin, rough letters. You can't read it, not really, but your brain fills it in. Blessed are those who forget. Outside, the stars are glittering, a little too enthusiastically. You blink at them, steady yourself, and take a breath that tastes like pine and candle smoke. You survived the poppy parlor. Barely. You don't remember walking to the tavern. One moment you're leaning against monastery stone, your breath smelling faintly of candle wax and secrets. And the next, you're ducking beneath a wooden beam that reads, "The Crow's Tooth" in crooked black paint. The place smells like roasted onions, spilled ale, wet wool, and something else. Something peppery, acrid. A bit like burned celery mixed with whatever the cat dragged in and forgot about. Inside, the ceiling is low and stained with a century's worth of smoke. Jugs clink, a lute plays off-key, and near the hearth sits the alewife, rosy cheeks, flour-dusted sleeves, and eyes that have absolutely seen too much. She grins like she knows you're new, and that's a dangerous thing to be here. You nod respectfully and take a seat. She pours you a mug before you even order. The drink is cloudy, amber, and already frothing over the rim like it's eager to escape. You sniff it. Hops? Not quite. Something richer. Stranger. Is that henbane? Fun historical fact. Before hops became standard in brewing, alewives used grute, a mix of herbs including yarrow, wild rosemary, and yes, henbane. Henbane is toxic in the wrong dose. In the right dose, it can make your dreams feel like operas and turn a field of sheep into a whispering audience. You sip. It burns slightly and coats your throat in velvet. Warmth spreads. You feel your neck loosen, your spine slouch. Your smile arrives without consulting your brain. You take another sip, and suddenly the fire is brighter. The shadows are more interesting. That man across the room looks like he's got antlers. He doesn't, but you can't prove that either. A peasant couple begins a slow, awkward jig. You tap your fingers to the rhythm. Someone claps offbeat. The room is spinning just slightly, like a carousel powered by drunken intent. Quirky tidbit. Henbane was once believed to allow communication with the dead. Some rituals involved burning it in a closed room, inhaling the smoke, and speaking to shades. In this tavern, the only ghost you might hear is last week's regret whispering, "Don't order the fish." The alewife slaps another mug in front of you. "This one's got hemlock," she says like she's offering honey. Your eyes widen. "Oh, relax," she snorts. "Just a sprig, for flavour." Then she winks. You sip that one too, because obviously you do. Hemlock, famously lethal in large doses, was used medicinally in small, tiny, practically theoretical amounts, to calm spasms, to slow down overactive minds, to test the limits of courage, apparently. Historians still argue whether these tavern blends were intentionally psychoactive or just the result of guesswork gone wild. Some think alewives had secret herb lore passed down through generations. Others say they just used whatever grew nearby and hoped the customers didn't drop dead before paying. Your mug is nearly empty. You reach for another, but the alewife stops you with a hand on your wrist. "You don't need more," she says gently. "You're already here." She's right. Here is a wobbly, delightful space. The fire is a mural. The mug feels alive in your hand. Your boots are giggling. Okay, that might be someone under the table, but still, you lean back. The tavern ceiling breathes like a living thing. You feel like you're floating just a few inches above the bench. It's wonderful, and just a touch terrifying. Someone beside you mumbles a rhyme. 3 herbs brewed for heart and head, 1 to dance and 2 for dead. You chuckle nervously. The alewife joins you at the table, wiping her hands on her apron. "We don't do that anymore," she says, vaguely referencing that rhyme. "Much." You realize your tongue feels slightly independent. It wants to speak in poems, or animal sounds, or nothing at all. A jug spills behind you. Someone laughs so hard they cough up their dignity. You can't stop smiling. You're high. In medieval terms, you're blessed, or cursed, or possibly both. And you're not alone. This was community in a twisted way. A release valve for peasants who worked sunrise to bone crack, for old women with aching joints, for shepherds who saw too much moonlight and not enough kindness, for you. And while your vision tilts like a lazy windmill and the floor seems to have forgotten its job, you notice one last detail, a dried herb bundle above the door. Yarrow, maybe, mugwort, a touch of nettle tied with red string, protective, decorative, or just forgotten. Doesn't matter. You close your eyes for a second, just a second. You dream you're flying, not through sky, but through grain. Golden stalks part around you. Somewhere the alewife is cackling, or singing, or maybe she's a bird now. And when you open your eyes again, your mug is full. Time has passed. Maybe a minute, maybe a year. You raise your drink with a shaky hand, whispering a toast to no one in particular. "To the herbs that don't kill," you murmur, "and to the ones that teach us how to float." The tavern door creaks behind you as you stumble out into the midnight air, blinking up at a sky spangled with stars you're pretty sure are rearranging themselves. It's quiet, except for a breeze rustling through the thatched roofs. Your breath fogs slightly. Somewhere in the fields behind the village, an owl calls once. Or was it a woman laughing? You're not sure where you're going, only that your feet are pulling you somewhere darker, wilder. The path curls behind the village chapel and out into the trees. There's a flickering light ahead, a glow, torch, bonfire, spell. You step into a clearing, and there they are, 4 women in cloaks. One stirs a pot hanging above flame. One's crouched over a bundle of herbs. One's sharpening a knife you really hope is for mushrooms. The 4th looks directly at you and smiles like she's been expecting you for weeks. Witch is such a strong word, isn't it? You approach slowly, arms loose, instincts unsure. But the smell, oh, the smell is magnetic. Something sweet and burning, oily, faintly metallic, the kind of smell that rewrites your priorities. One of the women pats a stump. You sit. She reaches into a crock and pulls out a lump of something greenish and glistening. She rubs it between her fingers until it melts into a dark salve. Then, without asking, she lifts your sleeve and smears it onto your wrist. It's warm, then cool, then neither. Then it's you that's warm and cool and neither. You blink. The trees look taller now. No, closer. No, they're leaning, like they're watching. Here's your historical fact. Witch's flying ointment was a real documented thing. Recipes varied, but many included belladonna, henbane, datura, and mandrake, all herbs known to cause hallucinations, delusions, and out-of-body sensations. The ointment was often made with animal fat and applied to sensitive skin areas, wrists, temples, even, well, more intimate places. You stare into the fire. The flames are dancing, literally, little bodies leaping in patterns. You think you hear them singing, high-pitched and giggling, or maybe that's just your blood. Quirky tidbit. Some medieval texts claimed witches used broomsticks not for flight but as applicators, for ointments. Yes, there. Yes, that's what the joke is really about. Sorry to ruin Halloween forever. The fire pulses. You feel yourself rising, not physically, but mentally. You hover just above yourself, watching your own breathing slow. The clearing glows brighter. The women are chanting now, low and rhythmic. Words you don't understand, but your spine gets the message. Relax, surrender. Historians still argue whether these rituals were real attempts at spiritual communion or simply misunderstood herbal trances. Some believe the so-called witches were healers exploring altered states of consciousness. Others think the entire flying myth came from trial confessions, squeezed out under duress, and maybe a little hysteria. But you're not here to argue. You're here to fly. You stand, or think you do. Your body is still seated, but your mind is stretching, lifting, blooming like a dandelion puff on the wind. The trees blur beneath you, the fire spirals below. The witches look small now, just dots in a glowing forest. You're above the village now, then the hills, then nothing at all. Blackness, but soft, velvet. You're floating in space made of dreams and dirt. Your thoughts dissolve into questions. What if birds dream of being human? What color is sleep? Does the moon miss being touched? You smile, and then you're back. The salve has worn off, or maybe it hasn't, and this is just another layer. You're lying on moss. The fire has dimmed, the women are gone. The stump still holds a smudge of greenish balm. You press a finger into it and smile at the memory of flying. You rise slowly. Everything aches, but nothing hurts. As you walk back toward the village, you pass a tree with symbols carved into the bark. Stars, spirals, maybe letters. You run a hand over them. They're warm. You don't remember who you were before tonight. Not really, but you know you're not the same. The owl calls again. You whisper back, just once. Dawn creeps over the village like a tired cat, slow, quiet, and entirely unimpressed with your condition. Your mouth tastes like old bread and secrets. Your eyes feel like they've been replaced with dry buttons. And yet, despite the crusty headache and the suspicious scratches on your forearm, you're grinning. You're alive. You're upright. And you just flew. Sort of. You wander aimlessly, past bleating goats and crooked fences, until the road widens into a path of dust and gravel. Up ahead, noise, metal clanking, men grunting, horses snorting indignantly. You follow the commotion until you reach a gathering of armored men outside a large stone house. The banner above the door flaps in the breeze. Red silk, faintly scorched. Crossed swords, crusaders. They're back from the Holy Land, and they've brought stories, scars, and something else entirely. Hashish. You keep your distance, watching one night, sunburnt, half drunk, and wearing half his armor, sit cross-legged beside a wooden chest. He's laughing as he hands around a small cake, dense and sticky and dark as molasses. His companion groans and flops back on the grass like he's just been kissed by God. Mainstream fact: Crusaders returning from campaigns in the Middle East encountered many foreign customs, some of them edible. Cannabis resin, often baked into sweets or rolled into pills, was widely used in the Islamic world, both medicinally and recreationally. The word hashish may even stem from these very soldiers' encounters. The night catches your eye and, to your horror and excitement, beckons. You hesitate for a solid 3 seconds before flopping down beside him like an obedient duckling. He tears a corner off the cake and hands it to you. It smells like cloves, smoke, and 1,000 years of forgotten dreams. You nibble. It's sweet, bitter, chewy. You swallow and wait. Nothing happens. Then everything happens. The grass begins to pulse. Your fingers hum. You swear the wind has learned how to whistle tunes from your childhood. You look at the knight beside you. His face is melting into a lion's, or maybe a saint's. He roars with laughter and says something in Latin that sounds suspiciously like, "Ride the snake." You're not sure what snake he means, but your spine obliges. Quirky tidbit. There's a legend, unverified but repeated with a gleeful smirk by some historians, that a group of returning knights tried to recreate a hashishin's garden back in France. Supposedly, they built a secret chamber full of perfumes, fountains, and cushions, and handed out sweets that turned squires into prophets. It didn't end well. Probably involved fire, definitely involved scandal. You lie back and watch clouds form stories. A man with a staff, a woman with wings, a dragon carrying a baby goat. The knight mumbles. They called them assassins, you know. Hash eaters, lived in mountains, dared kings to come find them. You blink. You've heard of that. The Order of Assassins. Truth and myth swirl around them like incense. Operatives who used hashish to achieve altered states, some say for ritual, some for control. Historians still argue whether the drug actually played any part in their missions, or if it was a smear campaign by terrified rulers trying to discredit them. What's clear is the legend stuck. Assassin itself carries the scent of those smoky gardens and mysterious cakes. You sit up slowly. The world is a glass sphere now, and you are its goldfish. Every blink is a ripple. Every thought trails behind you like silk. You thank the night, though your words come out more like interpretive jazz. He nods solemnly and offers a wineskin. You politely decline. You've done enough adventuring for one breakfast. Your limbs wobble, but your spirit glides as you wander down the hill and into the fields. You hear birdsong layered with echoes of Arabian flutes. Were those real? Did someone bring a musician home from Damascus? Doesn't matter. You hum along. As you walk, you pass a small chapel, its stones sun-bleached and quiet. On the wall, a fresco. Faded figures recline under trees, their eyes wide, serene, a platter of small cakes between them. You swear one of them winks at you. You chuckle and keep walking. The grass leans toward you as you pass. The wind pats your back like an approving uncle. Somewhere in the haze of morning, a voice whispers, "Be still and know that you are bread." You decide not to unpack that just yet. One final glance back. The knight has collapsed in laughter again, surrounded by his comrades, the cake nearly gone. And now you know something. The Middle Ages weren't always muddy and miserable. Sometimes they were wild, glorious, mind-bending. Sometimes they tasted like burnt sugar and pine resin and ended with you watching the clouds for answers that don't need to be spoken. The air sharpens as the sun climbs higher and your legs carry you, somewhat by accident, into the nave of a great stone cathedral. You don't remember deciding to enter. One moment you were outside, admiring the way the clouds kept applauding each other, and now you're standing beneath a vaulted ceiling so high it might scrape heaven's knees. Light slants through stained glass windows in thick, holy beams, slicing through drifting incense like sunlit smoke in a dream. The scent grabs you first, resinous, spicy, ancient, like crushed pine cones and singed citrus peel. You breathe in deep, and oh boy, you might want to sit down. Mainstream fact: medieval churches burned copious amounts of incense, especially frankincense and myrrh, imported along long and expensive trade routes. Aside from religious symbolism, it served practical purposes too, covering the smell of unwashed pilgrims, rotting bodies under floor stones, and, well, all of medieval life. But there's a fine line between uplifting aroma and mild sensory overload. And today, the censer is swinging with enthusiasm. A boy in robes passes by, the incense burner clinking like a medieval rave accessory. The smoke wafts thick as stew, rolling toward you like a sleepy tide. Your head tips back. Your arms go loose. You're floating again. No ointments this time. No cakes. Just holy air, infused with tree sap and fire. You settle into a pew. The priest at the front is droning in Latin, which might be scripture or might be a shopping list. It all feels equally important. You can't make out his words, but you understand the rhythm. It lulls you, cradles you, and then you see the angel. Not metaphorically, not artistically. A full-bodied figure, glowing faintly blue, hovering above the altar, nodding slowly in time with the sermon. Now, it could be the incense, or the lack of breakfast, or the remnants of yesterday's broomstick adventure still fizzing in your bloodstream. Or maybe it's just that you're incredibly susceptible to suggestion. After all, everyone around you is gazing toward the altar with glassy reverence. No one seems surprised. No one blinks. Historians still argue whether medieval religious visions were spiritual phenomena or chemically induced. Many recorded visions occurred in highly sensory environments: dim lighting, intense prayer, fasting, rhythmic chants, and yes, lots and lots of incense. Some suggest these were controlled trances. Others think mass hallucination isn't off the table. You stare harder. The angel does a slow twirl and gives you a thumbs up. You close your eyes for a second. Breathe. Try to reboot your reality. When you open them, the angel's gone. But now the stained glass windows are breathing. Not metaphorically. They're actually inhaling, exhaling, their colors shifting like sea foam. This is fine. You lean forward, resting your forehead against the pew in front of you. The wood is warm. It smells like beeswax and prayer. You start to giggle, quietly, because there's something deeply hilarious about hallucinating your way through Mass and trying to pretend it's all part of the plan. And here's your quirky tidbit. Certain blends of incense included not just resin from trees, but also dried herbs like sage, bay leaf, or even hashish in rare cases. One 13th century recipe from the Middle East that made its way west included cannabis in religious mixtures. Whether this was deliberate or a happy accident remains, well, up in smoke. The priest raises his hands now. A hush falls. The bells ring. You flinch slightly. Those bells are inside your skull. You can feel the sound ricocheting between your temples like a trapped hummingbird. Then, quiet. Stillness. You breathe deeply again, and it's like swallowing clouds. Holy ones. The ceremony ends. People rise slowly, filing out. You follow, legs stiff, neck loose. You glance once more at the altar. The angel's not there anymore, but something tells you it knows you saw it, and it's proud of you for staying quiet, for not trying to talk to it, for just being. You step outside into the daylight, blinking hard. The sun feels like a personal betrayal. Everything is so loud now. The birds are shrieking operas. The cobblestones are trying to trip you. The sky is aggressively blue. And you are high. On holiness. On incense. On centuries of belief packed into aromatic smoke. You sit on a bench outside the cathedral and press your palms together. Not in prayer exactly, just in grounding. Reminder, you are flesh. You are not glass. You cannot float. Probably. A pigeon lands beside you and gives you a look. I'm fine, you mutter. It coos like it doesn't believe you. You glance back at the cathedral, towering and calm. Inside, the incense still curls around the arches like memory. And for a moment you think, maybe that's what visions are. Just thick air and the willingness to see what you need to. Or maybe the angel was real. Either way, you don't regret sitting through that sermon. Even if you understood none of it and left with pupils the size of communion wafers, you're starting to accept that reality, in this century, is negotiable. You don't mean metaphorically, you mean literally, like your brain is a scribe copying the world around you, and today, he's doing it with a shaky hand and suspicious ink. You're back in the village square. It's late afternoon, warm enough for flies to circle, but cool enough that nobody's fainting. A baker is selling day-old loaves. Children are throwing pebbles at a dead rat for sport. You've just finished half a wheel of questionable cheese and, feeling both full and brave, you nibble at a piece of rye bread someone handed you for free. You should have asked why it was free. Because it's not just bread, it's dancing bread. Your fingers twitch, your jaw slackens. The world begins to flicker, just slightly at first, like you've been staring at fire too long. That, dear traveller, is ergot. Mainstream historical fact. Ergot is a fungus that grows on rye and other cereals during damp harvests. When consumed, it can cause ergotism, known in the Middle Ages as St. Anthony's fire. Symptoms included burning sensations, convulsions, hallucinations, and, in extreme cases, gangrene and death. Fun, right? You clutch the edge of a barrel and take deep breaths. But the ground starts to feel too far away, and the air smells like cinnamon and regret. A woman nearby is holding a cabbage, but it keeps morphing into a baby, then a cat, then her mother. You blink rapidly. Your hands are sweating breadcrumbs. There's a ringing in your ears like tiny bells. Maybe that's real. There's always someone selling bells. But this one is inside your skull again, chiming like a warning. A group of townspeople gather near the well, laughing too loudly. One drops to their knees and begins crawling in circles. Another climbs the well and screams, "I am a fish!" Nobody stops him. You realize, very suddenly, you are not the only one who ate the bad bread. Quirky tidbit. In 1951, a small French village called Pont Saint-Esprit experienced a mass poisoning, likely caused by ergot-contaminated bread. Dozens hallucinated wildly. Some even jumped out of windows. The local priest claimed it was the devil in the flour. Medieval accounts mirror this. Entire convents breaking into song, villagers stripping naked and dancing until collapse. The bread made them see. You stumble toward a bench and miss it completely, landing in the dirt. It's surprisingly comfortable. Above you, the sky has developed layers, like an onion or a cake. You try to peel it mentally. You get nowhere. A woman nearby sobs and prays to a loaf of bread she's cradling like a baby. A man next to her is whispering to a tree stump, loudly. You understand all of it, for about 6 seconds. Historians still argue whether outbreaks of dancing mania were mass psychogenic illness, ergot poisoning, or religious hysteria. Most agree it was probably a stew of all three, seasoned with poverty, bad hygiene, and spiritual desperation. Your body goes cold, then warm. Then it feels like it's made of wax, and someone's left you too close to the fire. Someone walks by wearing a mask with feathers. No one else reacts. You make eye contact with him, and he nods, solemnly, like you both now share a secret that transcends time and logic. The village priest is trying to gather people into the chapel. He holds up a cross and shouts something about St. Anthony. One woman kisses his robe. Another tries to bite it. You decide not to get involved. Instead, you crawl, literally crawl, into a patch of grass behind a wagon and roll onto your back. The sky is still layered, but now it's singing. And you're fine. You're great. Your rye-flavored divinity. Your teeth itch. You giggle again, this time more like a hiccup from the abyss. The hallucination begins to fade, just as your tongue returns to a reasonable temperature and the ground stops wobbling like an untrained juggler. You sit up slowly. You've been lying next to a goat the whole time. It gives you a side eye, unimpressed. You nod respectfully. Lesson learned. Ask about the bread. You stagger upright and stretch. Your joints crack like old floorboards. Your breath still smells faintly fungal, but you're alive. You survive St. Anthony's Bakery. You head toward the river to splash your face and thank the water for not being made of bees. Probably. As you wash, you feel clarity slowly returning, like fog lifting from the hills. A small child offers you a pear and a warning. Don't eat from that barrel over there. That flower's haunted. You nod. Thank you, ghost child. She shrugs. I'm not a ghost. Fair enough. You watch her skip away, humming a song that may or may not be in Latin, and you sit in the grass, dripping wet, letting your brain stitch itself back together. Medieval life was full of surprises, some divine, some fungal, but this one leaves a very specific aftertaste. The river helps. Its cold fingers pull you gently back toward reality, or at least toward a version of it where the clouds stay still and your bread doesn't talk. Your face feels clearer. Your teeth have stopped buzzing, and you're finally starting to remember how walking works. You follow the water upstream, hoping to outrun whatever's still sloshing around in your bloodstream. The path gets narrower. Trees crowd in. The breeze carries a different kind of scent now. Metallic, sharp, vaguely like vinegar and rotting apples. You've wandered onto the grounds of a noble estate. Not just any estate. A court alchemist lives here. The stone tower rises above a cluster of greenhouses and walled gardens. A brass sphere spins lazily from a balcony, catching the sun with smug precision. You'd turn back, but someone's already spotted you. Visitor? Asks a voice behind you, as if you had a choice. A man in a robe, not quite monk, not quite wizard, opens the garden gate. His fingers are stained green. His eyes flicker with something between wisdom and unstable curiosity. He smiles like you're a riddle he's excited to solve. You step inside. Mainstream fact: alchemists in medieval Europe weren't just obsessed with turning lead into gold. Many experimented with herbal compounds, distillation, and early chemistry. Some worked under noble patronage, blending science, medicine, and good old-fashioned mysticism in the same bubbling pot. The alchemist leads you through a greenhouse choked with vines. Glass flasks dangle from branches. Some contain liquids that seem to breathe. One has a small frog that looks at you like it knows what you did last summer. You sit beside a stone table. The alchemist uncorks a flask and pours a few drops into a carved wooden cup. The liquid is cloudy, reddish, and smells like regret mixed with cinnamon. You drink it. It tastes like wine, if wine had once been a lizard. Your stomach doesn't rebel, but it definitely files a complaint. Mind tonic, the alchemist explains. Clarity and insight, and sometimes bees, depending. You nod, and the world immediately tilts 30 degrees to the left. Your hands become extremely fascinating. Your fingertips feel like they've sprouted eyes. He chuckles and offers a plate of dried fruit and sugared nuts. You try to pick one up and miss by 2 inches. He makes no comment. Quirky tidbit. Some alchemists believed that reaching enlightenment required chemical purification of the body and spirit. This included drinking tinctures made from mercury, sulfur, antimony, and herbal extracts. Surprisingly, many of them died. Others just wrote very, very confusing books. You feel your thoughts stretch, like dough beneath warm hands. You begin to understand things, like why birds fly south and how the stars align to make your elbows feel prophetic. The alchemist hands you a small crystal and says, "Focus on it." You do. Inside, you see your own reflection, then your grandmother's face, then a castle, then your future self as a moss-covered hermit giving advice to goats. Good, he nods. Side effects include mild precognition and intense craving for pears. You believe him. Historians still argue whether alchemists intentionally used mind-altering substances to pursue visions of cosmic truth, or if they simply poisoned themselves so often that hallucinations were an occupational hazard. Some texts describe divine illuminations during distillations. Others read like drug-fueled diaries with excellent vocabulary. Your limbs are both heavy and humming now. You lie back on the grass, staring up through the greenhouse ceiling. The glass bends the sky. Colors ooze. A ladybug walks across your eyelid and you let it, because it seems polite. The alchemist sits beside you, legs crossed, holding a flame under another flask. We try to keep doses low, he says. Last time, a page boy thought he was a walnut, hid in a cupboard for 4 days. You nod like that's relatable. The plants around you seem to sigh. The air pulses with possibility. You close your eyes and see constellations rearranging themselves into rude messages. You laugh, then quiet. The effects begin to fade, not all at once, but like a candle burning down, slower, gentler, a little waxy at the edges. Your vision sharpens. Your fingers forget how to blink. The grass under you is just grass again, cool, soft, slightly damp. The alchemist pours water into a clay cup and offers it to you. It tastes like sanity, and maybe sage. You thank him. He grins. Don't mention it, unless you turn into a squirrel. Then tell everyone I warned you. You promise. You stumble back through the garden gate, blinking into the golden light of late day. The sun is lower now. Your mind is clearer, clearish. You definitely remember your name again. Probably. As you walk away, you realize something's tucked into your cloak. A small bottle, stoppered with wax. No label, no instructions. You look back. The alchemist is gone. Of course he is. You tuck the bottle away, unsure if it's a gift or a practical joke from the gods. Either way, you're taking it with you. By now, you've learned not to trust any food, drink, breeze, or monk with unusually shiny teeth. So when a wiry man with a woven basket waves you down at the edge of the forest and asks, "You hungry for mushrooms?" you don't answer right away. He's grinning like someone who knows something you don't. His cloak is patched with moss. His boots are laced with vines. And his basket? It's absolutely brimming with fungi that look like the inside of a dream you once had during a fever. Still, your curiosity betrays you. You nod. He gestures for you to follow him into the woods. Soon, the trees close in, tall and gnarled. Light filters through in shafts like golden ropes. The air smells damp, rich, and unmistakably fungal. Earth, leaf mold, wet bark, and something else. Spicier, alive. Careful where you step, he says, voice soft. Some mushrooms bruise like peaches, others just bite back. Mainstream fact. Medieval Europeans were deeply ambivalent about mushrooms. Edible fungi were prized in rural cooking, but identification was a nightmare. No formal taxonomy existed. Knowledge passed down by word of mouth, often mixed useful facts with deadly folklore. Some mushrooms nourished, others ended lineages. You crouch beside a fallen log. The forager points to a cap shaped like a bonnet, freckled with rust-colored spots. That one'll show you things, he whispers, if you're kind to it. You're not sure what kindness means in this context. You pluck it gently. Later, at his fire pit, a safe distance from any church, you eat a slice of mushroom roasted on a flat stone. It's chewy, earthy, a little nutty. He hands you a flask of something herbal to chase it, and then, like a leaf caught on a river, your mind begins to drift. It starts with color. The trees go gold, then sapphire, then something you don't have a name for. The forest breathes. You can hear it now, really hear it, exhaling wind and moss and the laughter of crows. You look at the forager. He's not smiling anymore. He's watching you, carefully, as though you're becoming something else. You are. Quirky tidbit. Psilocybin mushrooms grow naturally across Europe. Some historians believe they were consumed in small pagan rituals or seasonal festivals, but the church often labelled anything involving altered states as devilish. This, of course, only made it more appealing to curious villagers, with nothing to lose and everything to imagine. The fire crackles, but now it's humming, a note you can almost sing along to. You look up at the moon. It's not night yet, but the moon's already there, grinning like it's in on something. It blinks. You laugh, and the trees laugh back. Historians still argue whether psychoactive mushrooms played a real role in medieval spirituality. Some point to monastic art, gnome-like figures, oversized fungi, swirling skies, as secret nods to mind-altering experiences. Others argue it's coincidence, or artistic exaggeration, or wishful modern thinking. But then again, they didn't have Photoshop. You lie back in the pine needles. You don't remember doing that, but here you are. You feel your heartbeat in your ears, and it sounds like a drumbeat, like a call. The forest begins to whisper, not threatening, more like it's trying to tell you a secret it's been holding for centuries. You nod slowly. I'll remember, you whisper. The forager is gone now. Maybe he was never there. Maybe he was the mushroom. The trees lean in. One bends close and says, "You are more than skin and hunger." You believe it. Time folds. You see your childhood, but it's acted out by foxes. You see your future, written in constellations that resemble soup bowls and toothaches. You see now, this moment, as bright and sacred and ridiculous as it is. And then, peace. You're not flying. You're not melting. You're just still, completely, deeply, still. The high ebbs like a tide. Your limbs feel yours again. The fire is just fire. The trees retreat. You sit up, blinking. Your mouth tastes like cedar and the truth. The forager's basket is nearby, half empty. You don't take anything. You leave the mushrooms where they are. Instead, you whisper, "Thank you." Not sure to what. You walk out of the forest slowly, the path rearranging itself to let you go. The sunlight returns. The air dries. Your feet feel firm on the ground again. But part of you, just a sliver, remains in the woods, listening. You emerge from the woods changed, but nobody seems to notice. The village is still there, soup boiling, pigs squealing, someone loudly arguing with a wheelbarrow. You pass a smithy. The heat feels almost holy. You don't stop. You're following your nose now, back towards something familiar, something warm and savory. The monastery kitchen. You duck through the arched door into a dimly lit room that smells like bread, onions, and centuries. A single fire glows in a stone hearth. Brass pots dangle from beams like sleepy bats. A thin monk with a hooked nose and suspiciously cheerful whistle stirs a pot of soup with a ladle the size of a shovel. He sees you and nods once, then gestures to a wooden stool near the back. You sit, obedient as ever. "Hungry?" he asks without turning. You nod. He ladles soup into a wooden bowl and sets it before you with a chunk of hard brown bread. It smells good, really good. Earthy, meaty, garlicky. A hint of something sharp, like pine needles and peppercorns had a baby. You take a spoonful. It's mushroom soup, but not just any mushroom. You pause mid-bite, eyeing the reddish flecks and squishy grey slices floating between lentils and barley. "Is this?" you begin. The monk gives you a look, not a threatening one, just a look that says, "You're here, aren't you? Might as well keep chewing." Mainstream fact: medieval monks were renowned for their herb and fungus knowledge. While their rule often forbade meat during fasting periods, mushrooms were exempt. making them prized ingredients in monastic kitchens. Some monasteries even cultivated them in controlled cellars before the concept of refrigeration existed. You take another bite. It's delicious. And then the warmth begins. Not stomach warmth, mind warmth. You feel it crawl up your spine and bloom behind your eyes like a candle being lit inside a pumpkin. The kitchen lights shimmer. The bread begins to hum. You set your spoon down carefully. The monk continues whistling. A tune you realize is looping. It's only 4 notes, over and over, and it's starting to sound like a question. You try to ask what's in the soup, but your lips are suddenly uncooperative. He hands you a cloth. You dab your forehead. You're sweating through your socks. And then, as gently as a sigh, you're not in the kitchen anymore. You're in a stone corridor. No, wait. You're in the kitchen, but it's empty, cold, dusty, abandoned, and then full again. Smoke, light, music, laughter. The room keeps shifting like someone's flipping through a very enthusiastic scrapbook of centuries. And in every version of it, someone is stirring soup. The same pot, the same ladle, the same tune. You close your eyes. Quirky tidbit. Some species of Amanita mushroom, especially Amanita muscaria, the famous red-capped one, were occasionally used by medieval herbalists, despite their known psychoactive and sometimes toxic effects. Often boiled or dried to reduce toxicity, they were included in stews or teas, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not. The monk is sitting beside you now, or at least a version of him. His face is a little too symmetrical. His eyes mirror your own. He says nothing, just nods slowly. You realize you're crying, but only on the left side of your face. How poetic. Historians still argue whether monks use psychoactive mushrooms intentionally during fasts or religious rituals. Some believe visions were sought through hunger, prayer, and herbal enhancement. Others argue that ingestion was accidental, and monasteries quietly disposed of anyone who started talking to the walls. You rock slightly, not out of panic, out of rhythm. The kitchen is breathing again, and you are the lungs. Then, as quickly as it arrived, the warmth fades. You are solid again. The soup is still warm, barely touched. The monk is back at the hearth, stirring. You clear your throat. He glances over. Didn't like it. No, you croak. I loved it. He nods once. Then you'll be all right. You stand. Your legs feel like sourdough, your brain like a polished stone. You look back once before leaving. He's still stirring. You exit into daylight, blinking. Everything is clearer now, sharper, but quieter. The world feels like it's been oiled and set gently back on its hinges. You smile at a passing nun. She frowns. You keep walking. The soup is still inside you, and so is whatever it gave you. Maybe a memory, maybe a warning, or maybe just peace. You're on the road again. The monastery fades behind you like the last bite of warm bread, comforting, mysterious, and slightly suspect. The wind shifts. There's a tang in the air now, charcoal and perfume. You follow your nose and your curiosity, which has clearly never heard of caution, toward the distant flicker of silk tents and jingling bells. A caravan has arrived. Bright banners flap overhead. The market stalls are strange. Twisted metal, bowls of dried petals, odd instruments that look like you'd need 3 hands and a goat to play. Men in flowing robes and women wrapped in layers of indigo and gold speak in a language that dances. You understand none of it, and yet you feel it, like music you've never heard but already miss. You pause at a stall where glass pipes are laid out like museum pieces, long, curved, etched with silver. They smell faintly of clove, mint, and something burned at the edges. Curious? Asks the merchant, a tall man with coal-lined eyes and the calm confidence of someone who's never rushed anywhere in his life. You nod. He holds up a small nugget of dark resin. From the east, he says. Smoked, not swallowed. Brings clarity and a little mischief. You hesitate. You shouldn't. So obviously, you do. He lights the pipe with a coal and holds it out. You inhale. The smoke tastes rich, layered, like it knows something, like it's been somewhere important and brought stories back for you. It stings slightly, then soothes, and then your chest feels empty and full at the same time. Mainstream fact. By the late medieval period, trade with the Islamic world brought not just spices and fabric to Europe, but also recreational practices. Hashish, especially in North Africa and Persia, was used socially and medicinally, often in edible form, but also smoked through early pipes or long-necked water vessels. Some nobles and travelers returning from abroad brought these habits home. You cough, once, twice. Then the world goes soft. Not blurry, not warped. Soft, like it's been dusted in velvet. You can hear every sound twice. Once as it is, once as it wants to be. The stall beside you selling perfume seems to shimmer, each bottle vibrating with color. You watch a bead of sweat roll down a merchant's neck and swear you hear it say, "Almost there." Quirky tidbit. Some travelers' journals from the 13th and 14th centuries describe hashish use among merchants and philosophers in Baghdad and Cairo. One English knight wrote about black cake, which made me hear colors and dream while waking. Though modern historians suspect he vastly underplayed just how much he ate. The merchant waves incense under your nose. Not because you need more sensory input, clearly, but because why not? The mix of smells, the smoke, the myrrh, the rose oil on someone's wrist, becomes a place. You're walking through it. Or are you? Someone offers you candied dates. You take one. It tastes like laughter and warm sand. You lean against a post and watch the world shift gracefully around you. The silk of a merchant's sleeve looks like water. A child playing with a wooden horse becomes, for a moment, a prince in exile. Your own feet feel like borrowed furniture. You glance up at the merchant. He's watching you with a smile that says, "Let it happen." Historians still argue whether hashish was ever widely used in Europe or remained a cultural curiosity, confined to ports and noble courts. While written records exist, many scholars believe its influence remained mostly in the margins, revered by a few, feared by most, and profoundly misunderstood. You watch a man nearby exhale smoke into a glass bottle, then cork it as if capturing a spirit. He hands it to a friend, who opens it, inhales deeply, and falls over laughing. No one minds. You sit. Just sit. The earth feels closer now, like it's listening. You pick up a small stone and turn it in your fingers. It's cool, unremarkable, and yet you think, this could be important. Maybe not now, but someday. You breathe in, you breathe out. The effect begins to fade gently, like twilight sneaking across the horizon. You blink once, and the colors become real again. The silk is silk. The dates are fruit. Your hands are yours, mostly. You stand. The merchant nods once and slips the pipe back into his satchel. "Thank you," you murmur. He replies, "Next time, stay longer." You walk away slowly, the caravan noise growing behind you like a half-remembered festival. You don't look back. You know it'll be gone by dusk. Your feet crunch over gravel now, leaving the laughter of the caravan behind. The air cools as you crest a hill, where terraced farms slope gently into a glimmering orchard. Beyond it, a cluster of cottages surrounded by something unexpected. Beehives, dozens of them. Tall wicker skeps, humming with life. You've stumbled into honey country. A short, broad-shouldered woman waves you over with one gloved hand, the other holding a curved knife sticky with wax. She wears a veil, but you can still make out a smile beneath it. She leads you to a wooden bench beside a barrel that smells like sunshine filtered through old wood and mischief. "Mead?" she asks. "Of course." She hands you a clay cup. The liquid inside glows faintly amber in the dusk. You take a sip. It's sweet, but not cloying. It carries heat, depth, a spicy hum that settles in your throat like a quiet song. "Special batch," she says. "Rhododendron fed." You blink. Wait. Mainstream fact. Rhododendron nectar contains grayanotoxins, which can pass into honey and create what's been called mad honey. Ancient and medieval texts record its effects: tingling, dizziness, hallucinations, and in higher doses, vomiting or worse. It was prized in some places, feared in others. Used recreationally? Occasionally. Weaponized? Definitely. Ask the Romans who tried to conquer the Black Sea. You sip again. Your teeth tingle. Your ears feel like they've been unwrapped. The buzzing of the bees intensifies. Not louder, just closer. You swear you can hear them talking. Not in words exactly. More like emotional Morse code. The beekeeper sits beside you and removes her veil. Her face is kind and lined, her eyes bright as spring. "It doesn't always work," she says. "Depends on the flowers, the mood of the hive, the phase of the moon maybe." You're not sure if she's joking. You don't care, because your knees feel like jelly and the sky is breathing again. You lie back in the grass. The bees fly overhead in slow motion. Their wings sparkle. Their movement forms patterns, delicate, hypnotic. One hovers inches from your nose. You don't flinch. You understand it. You don't know how. Quirky tidbit. Pliny the Elder wrote about delirious honey causing madness in Roman soldiers. Other texts suggest that certain monks or forest-dwelling mystics used wild honey to induce altered states, sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose. In either case, bees became not just pollinators but messengers. The trees bend in slightly. The grass hums. You feel like your bones are blooming. You laugh softly, not because anything's funny, because everything is perfect. The beekeeper offers you a second cup. You take it, but sip more slowly now. Even your thoughts feel drunk. "Some say the honey remembers," she murmurs. "Remembers who it fed, who it touched, who it dreamed through." You believe her. Historians still argue whether mad honey ever reached Central Europe in significant quantities, or if it remained a Black Sea phenomenon. But records from isolated mountain communities suggest its occasional and usually accidental presence in local mead. Your arms feel far away. Your vision is a watercolor. The trees melt into one another. The sky turns lilac. You hear music, faint, wind chimes, or maybe it's just your blood being theatrical. Then the queen arrives. Not a person, a bee, enormous in your mind, gleaming like amber and starlight. She lands on your chest and sits, just sits. You weep, not from fear, from reverence. You blink once and she's gone, but her message lingers. You are small, but not meaningless. You sit up, dizzy and grateful. The beekeeper hands you a piece of wax-wrapped cheese and says, "You'll need that soon." You nod. Words are optional now. She helps you stand and points toward a cottage in the distance. "Sleep there. You'll dream clear." You thank her. You bow even. As you walk, the grass leans away from your steps as if it knows where you're going. At the door, you glance back. The hives glow faintly under the moon. The bees swirl like slow, golden fireflies. You lie down on the straw-stuffed mattress, heart still buzzing with distant wings. And for the first time in what feels like a century, you dream in honey. You wake up sticky. Not from honey, thankfully, but from sweat, sleep, and that intangible residue that clings to you after the mind's taken a stroll somewhere it shouldn't. You blink at the ceiling of rough beams. one of which definitely winked at you last night. Morning sun slants across the room like a silent invitation. You step outside. The bees are quieter now, back to regular buzzing. The beekeeper is gone. So is your last excuse to linger. You wander down a path worn smooth by bare feet and goat hooves. A gentle fog clings to the trees like memory, and then you hear it. Faint music. Pipes? A drum? No. Feet. Laughter. Bells. A dog barking joyfully. You follow. You crest a low hill, and there it is. A village clearing swarming with people dressed in patchwork clothes, wooden masks, and expressions of absolute freedom. Flags wave. A makeshift throne is occupied by a grinning man wearing a crown made from cheese rinds and feathers. Someone tosses turnips like confetti. Welcome to the Festival of Fools. Mainstream fact. Throughout medieval Europe, Feast of Fools or carnival celebrations allowed for a brief, glorious overturning of social order. The poor became kings, priests became goats, well, metaphorically, and chaos reigned. For a day. And yes, substances flowed as freely as insults. You're handed a goblet before you can protest. The drink is dark red and steaming, spiced with something that makes your nose feel like it's sneezing in a foreign language. You sip. It's wine. Mostly. Probably. But there's something else in it. Something floral, slightly numbing, faintly daring. The crowd cheers as someone pretends to marry a pig. You sip again. The trees lean in to watch. You're not alone in your haze. Eyes are bright. Feet are light. Inhibitions are in the compost heap. A girl dressed as a chicken does cartwheels through a puddle. No one even blinks. A man in a tattered monk robe grabs your hand and spins you in a dizzying circle. You laugh harder than you have in days. He shouts, "Confess your dreams to the donkey pope!" You decline. Respectfully. Quirky tidbit. At some of these feasts, a lord of misrule was crowned. A peasant or fool temporarily elevated to royalty, complete with mock sermons, animal parades, and wine-soaked proclamations. Historians have noted that these figures were sometimes given herbal blessings beforehand to loosen the tongue and bend reality. You stumble into a circle where people are passing around a gourd filled with something that smells suspiciously like last night's mead, but angrier. You pass. Barely. Someone throws a cabbage at a nun mask. It explodes on impact. The crowd erupts in applause. The wine in your hand begins to pulse. Or maybe that's your heartbeat. Hard to tell. You lean against a maypole and look up. The sky is spinning again, but this time you welcome it. Because this chaotic, fragrant, absurd celebration is an altered state, with or without herbs. Joy can be its own high, so can release. So can the freedom of forgetting you're supposed to be proper all the time. Historians still argue whether substances were officially sanctioned for these events or simply tolerated. Some records suggest that festival brews included wild herbs like vervain, lovage, or even datura, depending on who was hosting and how much they disliked their liver. You lie down in the grass. Next to you, a man dressed as a bishop is petting a duck and whispering secrets into its beak. The duck listens patiently. A child wearing a crown of leeks offers you a slice of cake. You accept. It's dry, full of raisins, and possibly laced with something that makes your tongue buzz. You don't ask. You just chew. The sun arcs higher. Music swells. You're pulled into another dance. You forget the steps, but so does everyone else. That's the point. You yell something in fake Latin and are immediately knighted with a leek. You feel glorious. Eventually, long after the donkey has been excommunicated and the pie juggling ends, you collapse beneath a tree, arms spread, heart full. The wine has done its work. So have the herbs. And so has the pure, untamed joy of watching a blacksmith kiss a sheep and mean it. You close your eyes. And this time the dreams don't melt your mind. They just giggle. When you finally wake, your head is surprisingly clear. Your clothes are damp with dew. A chicken is sitting on your chest like it owns the place. You gently nudge it off, stand, and find yourself surrounded by discarded masks, crushed fruit, and someone's left shoe, pointed, velvet, and somehow still smug. The village is quiet now. The festival's faded like steam. You wander the outskirts, rubbing your temples. Your mouth tastes like rosemary and questionable decisions. You need a walk, and maybe, just maybe, something less chaotic. So you join the pilgrims. The road south is littered with feet, staffs, blisters, and murmured prayers. Pilgrims trudge in worn boots and patched cloaks, bound for Santiago, Canterbury, Rome. Take your pick. Holy relics await, miracles maybe. But in the meantime, there's boredom, hunger, and a lot of talking about corns. You fall in beside a woman named Ilda, who's chewing on something bitter-smelling and wild. Root for wakefulness, she explains. Chew it or nod off. You nod politely. She hands you a piece. It looks like a stick. You chew it anyway. It tastes like old socks and fireplace ash. Your jaw tingles, and then your vision sharpens. The road brightens. Each leaf is a masterpiece. Each rock has a personality. You can smell people's thoughts. One pilgrim ahead is definitely sad. Another smells like hope. Mainstream fact. Medieval pilgrims often chewed stimulating roots or herbs, gentian, angelica, costmary, and others, to stay alert or stave off hunger. Some had genuine medicinal effects. Others may have altered perception, especially after days of fasting or dehydration. You keep chewing. The road rises, then dips. Your legs stop aching. Your ears feel taller. Ilda chuckles. Yours hit fast. You try to ask what it is, but you're too busy counting the freckles on a donkey's ears. 47. A man nearby sings a hymn, and you swear the words leave visible trails in the air like ribbon. You blink. You are still on the road. But you are also not. The stones beneath your feet hum. The wind tells stories. Your own shadow tries to kiss you on the cheek. Quirky tidbit. In parts of northern Spain, local healers, curanderos, were known to mix pilgrim tonics with everything from mint and clover to datura and dried bark scrapings. These tonics were often sold near shrines and guaranteed a spiritual experience, or at least a memorable walk. Ilda points at a tree. Do you see him? You squint. A figure leans against the trunk. Robes, a staff, scallop shell pinned to his hat. Classic St. James. He lifts a hand, not a wave, more like a blessing, or maybe a dare. You blink again, and he's gone. Historians still argue whether pilgrims deliberately used these substances for religious visions, or if they simply happened, courtesy of hunger, exhaustion, and the odd helpful herb. Some accounts describe visits from saints or angels along the road. Others mention glowing trees, talking rivers, and shoes that walked themselves. Your thoughts drift upward. The clouds are walking too, marching towards something. You hum. Your hum matches the footsteps of the pilgrims around you. It feels important. You reach a small shrine beside the road. A wooden box of offerings sits beneath a statue. Someone's left a cheese rind, a scrap of wool, and, charmingly, a perfectly round rock with a smiley face scratched into it. You kneel, not out of obligation, out of awe. The shrine hums gently. The stone feels warm beneath your hand. You whisper a wish you didn't know you had, then stand. Ilda spits out her root and grins. Let's keep walking. Miracles don't find themselves. You walk on. The road winds like a lullaby. Each step feels right, measured, like the earth is grateful you're walking on it today. Eventually, the effect fades. The light softens. Your vision narrows back into something manageable, but a quiet glow remains behind your eyes, the kind you keep. You thank Ilda. She nods once, tosses you another root for later, and drifts ahead like smoke. You watch her go, then follow, one foot in front of the other. You don't know where the path ends, but for now, you don't need to. The road forks after 3 days of walking and one night spent listening to frogs argue in Latin beside a muddy ditch. Your knees ache, your boots have become sentient and resentful. You're out of Ilda's magic roots, and you're dangerously close to naming your walking stick. So when a crooked wooden sign points toward a nearby village with the words "Healer's Rest" carved into it, and a little painted flower beneath, you veer off the main trail without hesitation. You arrive in a cluster of cottages draped in vines, the air thick with lavender, lemon balm, and wood smoke. Chickens patrol the streets with the confidence of retired nobles. A cat glares at you from a windowsill, then looks away, bored. You've passed inspection. A young boy runs up and gestures for you to follow. You do, of course. He leads you to a round hut with a thatched roof and a blue door. The door is open. You step inside and immediately feel like you've entered a library, an apothecary, and a grandmother's attic all at once. Shelves upon shelves of jars, bundles, bones, stones, powders, and things you can't even identify. A squirrel skull wearing a crown. A jar labeled "dust from under the bed." A bundle of twigs tied with hair. "Don't touch the third shelf," says a voice from behind the curtain. Then the curtain moves. She's old, not frail old, weathered old. Her back is straight, her eyes are sharp, and she's wearing a shawl that looks like it was woven by bees and dyed in thunderstorm water. "You look like someone who hasn't dreamed well in a while," she says. You don't argue. Mainstream fact, village healers, often called wise women, herb wives, or cunning folk, were essential in medieval communities. Though often feared or accused of sorcery, they were sought out for everything from childbirth to toothaches to spiritual malaise. Their knowledge, passed down orally, was dense, practical, and occasionally mind-bending. She asks no questions, just opens a drawer and pulls out a small pouch. "Dream dust," she explains. "Blow it under your tongue, lie down, listen." You hesitate for the full width of one heartbeat, then obey. The powder tastes like old paper and nettle. It fizzles slightly. Your limbs feel heavier. The bed she gestures to is covered in furs, feathers, and what might be a bear's shrug. You lie down, and your brain leaves, not violently, gracefully. You're floating over a lake, then under it. You're walking through a cave of mirrors, each one showing you as something different. A king, a goat, a child, a shadow. You're not asleep. You're not awake. You're somewhere better. Quirky tidbit. Dream dust is a fictional term, but medieval healers did concoct sleep aids and vision powders from herbs like valerian, hops, passionflower, and mandrake. Some even burned herbs like mugwort under the bed or tucked them in pillows, believing dreams could be guided by scent. In your dream, the old woman is there, stirring a cauldron full of stars. She says nothing, just nods once. You walk into yourself, that's the only way to describe it, and you find a note, written in your own handwriting. It says, "Keep going." You wake slowly. The fire crackles. The woman sips something from a mug. She doesn't look at you, just says, "You needed that." You sit up. The world is quieter, smoother. Your ribs feel like they've been washed. Your breath is yours again. "Will it last?" you ask. She shrugs. "Long enough?" She hands you a bottle, brown glass, sealed with wax. No label. "For next time," she says. You nod. Your eyes sting a little. Historians still argue whether these women were true mystics, skilled herbalists, or victims of cultural fear. But those who met them rarely forgot the visit, and often returned. Quietly, desperately, or just for the tea. You thank her. She walks you to the door and squints at the sky. Rain by morning, she mutters. You look up. Perfect blue. Not a cloud in sight. But you nod. You believe her. As you walk away, the pouch still in your hand, the air feels newly folded, like the world has exhaled and you're walking through that breath. Behind you, the blue door creaks closed. Ahead, the road waits. You feel ready. The woman was right. The rain begins as a whisper on the leaves before sunrise, growing into a steady drumming by mid-morning. You're drenched. Every layer of fabric on your body feels like it's trying to leave you. Your boots squish. You smell like regret and damp sheep. But the road continues, and so do you. Because at this point, turning back would mean explaining things you can barely explain to yourself. Ahead, barely visible through the mist, you spot spires, elegant, curling, gilded with raindrops. A city, bigger than any village you've passed. The kind of place where people still wear shoes for decoration and pretend not to smell like horse. You slosh into the lower district. Market stalls covered with tarps, runners darting through puddles. And there, just past the public fountain, a grand courtyard lined with marble tiles and guards who clearly don't care about your wet socks. A man in robes waves you forward, smiling like he owns time. You're just in time for the banquet, he says. You glance at your mud-soaked cloak. He doesn't. You're ushered through ornate doors into a room so full of cushions, perfume and candlelight that your nose gives up halfway through trying to process it. Long tables gleam with brass trays, and at the far end, reclined on velvet cushions, the Sultan. No, you haven't taken a wrong turn to Persia. This is a visiting dignitary, a man of wealth, wisdom, and a taste for ceremony. And you're an honored guest. Why? Probably the smell. You reek of miles. That means journey. That means story. He gestures for you to sit. Servants bring sweet tea, trays of preserved lemon, and something wrapped in fig leaves that hums with heat and mystery. Then a man appears with a silver dish and a pinch of something dark and crumbling. Snuff, he says. Just a touch. You nod like you're supposed to know what that means. Mainstream fact. Tobacco wouldn't arrive in Europe until after 1492, but the practice of sniffing or inhaling powdered herbs, resins and spices existed long before, particularly in Middle Eastern courts. Inhaled mixtures of cinnamon, myrrh, pepper, or even mild narcotics were used for clarity, invigoration, or in some cases, ceremonial trance. You lean forward and inhale lightly. It hits like a firework behind your eyes. Your sinuses empty. Your brain fills. The air sparkles. Suddenly, the food smells like music. The music tastes like sugar. A single clap of a hand across the room feels like a god snapped their fingers. You lean back and exhale. The world doesn't just feel better. It feels designed, like the universe decided to clean up before you got here. You reach for a stuffed date and it explodes on your tongue like warm thunder. Quirky tidbit. Some ceremonial snuffs included exotic blends with crushed rose petals, dried citrus rind, and even hashish resin. They weren't just for sneezes, they were spiritual appetizers, meant to awaken not just the senses but the soul. The Sultan leans toward you and says, "Tell me something you've never told anyone." And you do, without thinking. It just slips out. A memory, a fear, a wish. He nods once. Good. The room hums in approval. Or maybe that's your ears. Historians still argue whether ceremonial snuff rituals crossed into European elite culture by direct contact or through merchants' adaptation. There's evidence that some noble courts experimented with scent therapy and powder rituals long before tobacco arrived. The exact recipes are lost, but the impact lingered, especially in dreams. The banquet continues. You try something wrapped in grape leaves. It makes your knees smile. Someone sings in a language you don't know, but you recognize the tune from a dream you once had in a fever. The snuff begins to wear off. but the clarity remains. You see the gold threads in the curtains, the steam rising from every dish like a tiny story. The Sultan claps twice. Servants enter with little bowls of something creamy and sweet, rosewater pudding laced with something subtle. Sleep is sweeter after a gift, he says. You nod. You eat. The pudding tastes like a memory from your childhood that never happened, but should have. You're shown to a chamber lined with pillows. The incense burns low. The walls glow gently. You sleep, and for once, you don't dream. You rest. When you wake, the city smells of bread and sunrise. The Sultan is gone, but the clarity remains. You thank the servants. They say nothing, only press a small vial into your palm, full of the same powder from the night before. No label, no instructions, just a gift. You walk out of the city through a gate that was never there before. The rain has stopped. The road, once again, is yours. The air beyond the city feels cleaner, as if passing through those golden gates wrung out your spirit. The sky is pale blue, cloudless, but you can still feel something stirring. A tingle just behind your ears, as though the wind carries music you can't quite hear. You walk uphill for hours, past vineyards and lonely shrines, past a shepherd who nods at you with a knowing smirk. You nod back, mostly out of fear. His sheep are telepathic. By late afternoon, you reach a trail that splits between two mountain ridges. A sign, nailed haphazardly to a tree, reads, "Goat's Tooth Path. No carts beyond this point, or common sense." Naturally, you take it. The climb is steep, unreasonable. The rocks wobble underfoot. But the view, oh, the view. Below you, green valleys, wild forests, a ribbon of silver river threading through it all like a careless stitch. And up ahead, a shack clinging to the cliffside like a dare. You approach cautiously. The smell hits you first. Herbal, musky, with a hint of goat and something scorched. A hunched woman greets you at the door, brushing ash from her apron. "You've come for the tea," she says. Not a question. You're too tired to lie. You nod. She beckons you inside. Mainstream fact. In remote alpine regions, herbalists, often called bone women or hill wives, used local flora for medicinal and mystical purposes. Many believed certain roots only grew under specific circumstances, where lightning struck, or under goat hooves, or near places where dreams were said to leak into the waking world. Inside her shack, every surface is covered in bundles of drying herbs. Some you recognize: thyme, sage. Others, not so much. There's one that looks like a wilted fern and smells like regret. Another that glows faintly when the candlelight hits it right. She sets a copper pot over the fire, drops in a root that sizzles like it's protesting, then adds something dried and crumbling. Goat horn root, she explains. Only blooms once a year, grows where animals sleep and stars line up just so. You don't know what to say to that, so you just bow slightly. She pours the tea into a small wooden cup. It's the color of over-steeped secrets. You sip. It tastes like firewood and citrus and a distant memory of your own voice. Your stomach tightens. Your jaw unclenches. Your hands go numb, not in a scary way, in a finally relaxed way. You lean back against the wall and breathe. The room tilts. The herbs sway, not because of wind, but in agreement. Then it begins. Not a hallucination, not exactly. You just know things. You feel the roots of the mountain pulsing like veins. You sense the storm brewing 2 valleys away. You know, absolutely know, that the moon will be red tonight. You say, "I understand now." The woman smirks. Most say that. Fewer remember what they understood. Quirky tidbit. Some historical mountain communities believed certain plants could only be found by those who were called. those who walked with open minds and, often, mild disorientation. One such route, now lost to record, was said to bring the knowledge of stone and air. Vague, but dramatic. The effect isn't loud, no fireworks, just clarity. A deep, low vibration of understanding. You feel your thoughts sort themselves. Your fears curl up and go quiet. Your regrets stop squirming and take a nap. You sit in that stillness for a long time. The old woman brews a second cup. You decline. Once is enough. You leave a coin. She ignores it. Instead, she hands you a small pouch. For next time you forget. You thank her. Outside, the mountain wind greets you like a friend you've known forever. The world looks bigger, but less intimidating. You descend carefully, and as you go, you realize you're not alone. Not in a spooky way, more like the trees are walking beside you. The stones nod politely. Even the wind seems to whisper, "Welcome back." You walk until the stars come out, and when the moon rises, yes, red as blood and full as prophecy, you nod, because you knew, and the goat horn route did too. By morning, you've traded mountain silence for village gossip, the kind that buzzes just below polite conversation, the kind muttered behind bread stalls and embroidered into prayer requests. Something's happening in the next town over, something with herbs, something with her. They don't say her name, they just say the widow, like that explains everything. And in a way, it does. So, you walk. The town is grey around the edges, even under the noonday sun. Windows shutter quickly as you pass. A few old men outside the tavern glance up, then immediately resume pretending to die of boredom. You hear the bells of the church before you see it. A tall, square stone building squats at the end of the road, its door already flanked by villagers, muttering prayers and crossing themselves. Inside, it's a courtroom, or something pretending to be one. A woman stands near the altar, not kneeling, not afraid. Her hair is long, braided with something dark. She wears a dress too fine for a peasant, too plain for a noble. Her eyes are steel. Her hands are bound with rope that looks more symbolic than functional. The priest reads accusations from a scroll. Poisoning, witchcraft, whispering things into sick people's ears and making them better. Or worse. Someone in the crowd yells, "She gave my sister Dreamleaf." Gasps. You try not to raise your eyebrows. Mainstream fact. In medieval Europe, women healers were often accused of witchcraft, especially if their knowledge surpassed the local male physicians, or if their patients mysteriously improved or died. Plants like nightshade, henbane, mandrake, and even fennel could land you in serious trouble if you weren't careful, or if your neighbors were bored. The woman doesn't defend herself. She just stares at you. For half a second, your lungs forget their purpose. Then someone calls for firewood. Quirky tidbit. Court records from the 14th century show that people were tried not just for what herbs they used, but how they smelled. A midwife once stood trial because her salve had a devilish musk and made people fall asleep too fast. Another was accused of transforming herself into a cat, though she maintained it was just the herbs that made her feel feline. The priest lifts a vial from the evidence table. Inside, something purple, swirled with silver threads. He says it aloud. Witch's blood. You choke on your own breath. It's lavender syrup, possibly with mint. You step forward. Why? Because you're an idiot. Or because you recognize the pouch on the table. It matches the one you were given back in the herb woman's hut. Same weave, same faint scent of dried valerian and something older. Where did she get that? You ask, louder than intended. Everyone turns. The priest squints. Who are you? A pilgrim, you say. A dreamer. The woman's lips twitch barely. You step closer to the table. You point to the vial. That's not poison. That's a sleep tonic, not even a strong one. The priest frowns. You admit to knowing its use? Only because I've taken it. Gasps again. Someone mutters, heretic. Another mutters, idiot. Possibly the same person. Historians still argue whether these trials were genuinely about heresy or thinly veiled power plays. The line between medicine and magic was so thin you could lose your life just by being helpful on the wrong day. The woman finally speaks, voice calm, steady. I helped those who came to me. Some woke up better, some didn't wake up at all, but I never took payment from those who couldn't afford it. Someone from the crowd hisses, "She brewed moonroot for my cousin." She was dying, the widow says gently. It let her leave softly. The priest raises his arms, about to call for a verdict. And then, quietly, from the back, a woman says, "She helped my baby breathe again." Then another, "She made the pain go away when the village doctor said nothing could." And another, "She gave me dreams of my son after he passed. Just one more night." Voices rise. The priest hesitates. The crowd shifts, not with torches, with doubt. You watch the rope fall from the woman's hands. No one even saw who untied it. She walks down the aisle, not triumphant, just whole. And as she passes you, she presses something into your palm. A sprig of dried lavender, a symbol, a thank you, or maybe a warning. Outside, the bells stop. You breathe, and the witch walks free. You leave the village quietly, before someone changes their mind or misremembers your face. The road dips again into the lowlands, where the air thickens with heat and fermenting apples. You pass a broken fence. A goat bleats once, sounding just judgmental enough to make you question all your recent choices. Ahead, smoke curls above the rooftops of another town, this one louder, dirtier, festive. A man in a red tunic stumbles past, laughing, a crown made from chicken bones on his head. A woman with soot on her cheeks dances around him, swinging a wine jug like it's a holy relic. You've arrived at the Festival of Fools again, or maybe just another version of it. This one's bigger, wilder, less village pageant and more accidental rebellion wearing a jester's hat. You're swept along by the crowd before you can protest. A garland of garlic appears around your neck. A child smears soot on your cheeks and yells, "Now you're ready!" You are, apparently. A makeshift altar in the center of the square hosts a donkey, wearing a mitre and chewing on a book. The people cheer. The donkey belches. You cheer too, mostly from peer pressure. Someone hands you a goblet. Of course they do. It's wine. Red, hot, spiced. But there's something else. It tingles on your tongue. Not just alcohol. Something herbal. Something floral. You ask what's in it. The man laughs. Oh, everything. Peace. Mainstream fact. Festivals like this really happened. Feast of Fools, Twelfth Night, the Lord of Misrule. These chaotic celebrations upended social hierarchies for a day or more, mocking the church, crowning peasants as kings, and indulging in rituals the rest of the year suppressed. The wine flowed freely, and so did questionable ingredients. You drink anyway. Because by now, you know better, and you also know you don't care. The warmth hits your stomach, your cheeks, and finally your thoughts. A veil lifts. The world tilts gently, not like a mistake, but like a deliberate joke. Everything feels possible, and very slightly musical. The drums begin, rhythmic, heavy, primal. You're dancing now. You didn't plan to. Your limbs are simply tired of waiting. Around you, the festival erupts. A man gives a sermon while wearing a turnip on his head. A mock trial begins with the local baker accused of kneading lust into the bread. He's acquitted after a very passionate defense. You watch a woman in a black veil pour a blue liquid into a bowl. Steam rises. The people around her begin to chant nonsense words that somehow feel right. You feel your heartbeat in your knees. Quirky tidbit. Some festival wines were intentionally laced with euphoric herbs, like lovage, damiana, or wild lettuce. These weren't meant to knock you unconscious, just to tilt the world. Let the soul breathe sideways for a while. You find yourself wearing a paper crown. Someone pins a fish to your cloak. You're not offended. Someone else hands you a cookie shaped like a bishop's hat. You bite into it and immediately understand the meaning of life. Then forget it. But you feel better. You begin to weep and laugh at the same time. So does the donkey. The mare, wearing nothing but gold paint and confidence, climbs onto a barrel and shouts, "Truth shall be revealed through nonsense!" Everyone cheers. Historians still argue whether these events were political protest in disguise or genuine pressure valves for a repressed society. Some believe the wine and herbs were tools to reveal what couldn't be spoken aloud. Others think it was just humanity's need to lose its mind in public once in a while. You sit on a step, panting. Your vision swirls slightly. You see saints in chicken feathers. You see wisdom in spilled cider. You see yourself, not high, not drunk, just open. A woman next to you leans in and whispers, "This is the only day we tell the truth." You whisper back, "I once kissed a monk." She nods. We all have. By midnight, the fires are low. People collapse in piles. The donkey has retired with dignity. You lie on your back and watch the smoke trail into constellations. And you think, maybe this is the most honest thing the Middle Ages have offered so far. Not the herbs, or the visions, or the saints whispering in candle smoke, but this. Permission. To be foolish. To speak nonsense. To dance badly in borrowed shoes. To be high on laughter, on music, on joy, steeped in wine and herbs and glorious disobedience. You close your eyes and dream of being crowned king of absolutely nothing and loving it. You wake up with hay in your mouth, a crown of parsley on your head, and a goat curled beside you like a judgmental roommate. The sun is far too bright. The people around you are moaning in various languages, including one man who seems to have temporarily forgotten vowels. Your head pulses like a war drum, but your soul, surprisingly light. You leave quietly, before someone hands you another ceremonial fish, or asks you to marry a pumpkin. The road pulls you onward, and the landscape shifts again. The cobblestone gives way to hedgerows, to silk gardens and ivy-covered manors. Birds sing politely here. Even the frogs sound expensive. You've entered noble territory now, where everything smells faintly of lavender and subtle disapproval. You don't plan to visit anyone, but hunger, as always, has other ideas. You knock gently at the gate of a large stone house. The butler eyes you like a spilled ink blot, but a voice from inside calls, "Let them in. I'm bored." That's how you meet Lady Alizane. She's draped in velvet and lounging on a divan like a bored cat in a jewelry box. Her hair is perfect. Her fingers are stained with rose petals, and her goblet? Brimming with something pink, sweet, and probably illegal. "Sit," she says, pointing to a cushioned stool like you're a pet with good manners. You sit. She hands you a glass. "You'll love this." You raise it slowly. It smells like sugared wine, with a whisper of mint and something sharper underneath. Like pine and violets got into a fight and decided to become cordial. You sip and feel your skin start to glow. Mainstream fact: medieval noblewomen were often amateur alchemists and herbalists. Rose water, mead infusions, and tonics made with spices and flowers were used for health, beauty, and sometimes other purposes. Diaries mention heart elixirs and dream syrups, brewed for clarity, youthfulness, and occasionally to endure very long dinner parties. You drain the glass, and the warmth spreads. Not drunkenness exactly, more like someone kissed every single one of your cells good morning. Alizane giggles. "What was in that?" you ask. She shrugs. "Rose water, juniper, and a petal or two of blue poppy, not enough to faint, just enough to notice your toes again. You glance at your toes. They're glowing slightly. She reclines again, sighing dramatically. We drink it at salons. Helps us tolerate poetry readings. And husbands. You chuckle, which seems to delight her. She offers you a second glass. You decline. She pours it anyway. Quirky tidbit. In some noble courts, it was fashionable to craft mood tonics, blends of alcohol, honey, spices, and narcotic herbs, like opium poppy or valerian root. The goal wasn't to get sloshed, it was to feel elevated, delicately untethered, emotionally aerodynamic. Lady Alizane leans forward, eyes glittering. "Tell me a secret," she says. You do. Again. Apparently that's becoming your thing. She claps her hands and declares you delightfully tragic. You want to leave, but your body is still hovering an inch above the chair. The walls around you shimmer. The curtains flutter like they're dancing. The fire in the hearth crackles in iambic pentameter. Lady Alizane hums a tune that makes your heart sink to its rhythm. You are, for a moment, the painting on her wall. You are the garden she dreams about, but never visits. And you understand why noble women brewed these drinks, because they were trapped, in corsets, in codes, in carefully rehearsed sighs. These tonics weren't indulgences, they were escapes. Historians still argue whether these recipes were passed down as medicine or magic. Some scholars say they were harmless placebos. Others believe the ingredients were powerful enough to quiet nerves and open doorways, especially when taken behind closed curtains, with no witnesses but moonlight. You set your glass down, carefully. Lady Alizane smiles faintly. You're not like the others. Neither are you, you reply. She laughs once, soft and unguarded, then hands you a small crystal vial. For your journey, 1 drop when the world feels unbearable, 2 if it starts rhyming. You thank her. She waves you away with a flick of her perfumed wrist. You walk out the front gate dazed, shining, and just a little bit braver. Your thoughts float above your head like birdsong. The world doesn't shimmer anymore. You do. The shine fades as the afternoon deepens, replaced by the soft ache of distance and something else. Anticipation, maybe, or the quiet buzz that comes when you're nearing a place without knowing why. The road turns muddy again. Thistles lean in as if to whisper secrets. You brush them off like clingy fans. Ahead, a low stone wall appears, cracked and laced with ivy. Beyond it, a grove of ash trees. And in the center, shaped like a question no one's dared ask, a monastic retreat. You hesitate. Monks don't exactly scream party, and your history with authority figures is, well, complicated. But your feet keep walking, drawn by the scent of smoke and something sweet. Spiced apples, maybe, or honey baking on stone. A bell rings softly. No urgency, just presence. The doors open. A robed figure greets you with the kind of calm that makes you want to apologize for every sin you ever considered committing. "Peace," he says. You nod, instantly quieter. Inside, the monastery hums. No one speaks unless spoken to. The walls breathe warmth. The floors are so clean they seem holy in their own right. And somewhere, a choir of bees sings among the hives behind the herb garden. A younger monk, freckled, soft-eyed, leads you to a bench overlooking a still pond. He offers you a wooden cup. You lift it, cautiously. It's warm, thick, golden. He says one word, metheglin. Mainstream fact. Metheglin is a spiced mead, an old Welsh term from mediglin, meaning healing liquor. Monks across medieval Europe brewed mead with herbs like thyme, sage and rosemary, not just for flavor, but for their medicinal properties. It was considered a sacred drink, capable of soothing the body and lifting the spirit. You sip, and for the first time in days, your heartbeat slows, without needing to be tricked by roots or flowers or fool's wine. This warmth feels earned, gentle, like a blessing that asks nothing in return. You sit in silence. The monk sits beside you, humming under his breath. It takes a while to recognize the tune. It's the same melody Lady Alisane hummed, but here, stripped of silk and mischief, it sounds like a prayer. Quirky tidbit. Some monasteries included still rooms, quiet chambers where monks experimented with fermentation and distillation, not just for drink, but for tinctures, tonics, and even the earliest proto-perfumes. These were the labs of medieval chemistry, run by men who also knew how to chant. After a long pause, the monk speaks. Do you know why we brew this? You shake your head. To remember, he says, and to forget. He stands and walks away, as if that was enough. It is. You drink slowly, your thoughts slow with it. The world doesn't shift, it settles. The breeze plays gently with your hair, like a mother soothing a fevered child. You think about all the places you've passed, the people who shared their roots, their powders, their cups, and their silences. You think about Ilda, the herb woman with her feathered bundles, about the widow who walked free, the donkey pope, Lady Alisane and her bittersweet elixir of survival. And now, this monk, offering nothing more than warmth and meaning tucked inside a cup. Historians still argue whether monastic brewing traditions were science, faith, or habit, but records show they kept meticulous notes on taste, effect, fermentation times, and the reactions of guests. Some recipes survive, others are lost, like dreams poured into wood. As night falls, you're offered a cot in the guest quarters. The walls are plain, the mattress is straw, but it might be the most peaceful bed you've known. You don't dream, you don't need to. At sunrise, you wake to the soft rustle of robes and the clink of cups. The same young monk nods once and hands you a flask, metheglin, still warm, for the road. You bow, properly this time, and as you pass the gate, the bells chime once more. No warning, no farewell, just presence. You walk on, not lighter, not heavier, just whole. The road descends into swamp country. The air thickens with every step. Your boots squelch through mud that smells faintly like regret and decomposing hope. The trees grow stranger, more limbs than logic, draped in moss that hangs like forgotten hair. You're not alone, not in the ghostly way, just in the watched way, the kind that prickles the back of your neck and makes you walk straighter than you should in this kind of heat. And then, through the steam and insect hum, you see it. A rickety shack built half over water, half on prayer. A woman leans against the doorway. She's barefoot, smoking a pipe carved to look like a heron. Her eyes narrow the moment she sees you. You're not lost enough to need me, she says, but you're curious enough to try. You nod. Because, yeah. She laughs and disappears inside. You follow. The shack is cramped and alive. Jars of pickled frogs, coils of dried snakeskin, bunches of herbs that look angry just hanging there. A black cat stares at you like it knows the shape of your spleen. She motions you to sit. You obey. You want the root, she says. Not a question. I don't know, you answer honestly. She shrugs. Perfect. Mainstream fact. Swamp healers, also called bog witches, fenwise, or mud women, existed across medieval Europe, especially in wetland regions. They were midwives, poison testers, charm makers, often feared, often sought. Their knowledge of strange herbs, fungi, and amphibious cures was unmatched. She pulls a gnarled root from a clay pot. It glistens, freshly cut, the color of dried blood and bruised plums. This is fleshwort, she says. Grows only in soil that's never seen sunlight. You chew it, you see, too much. You eye it. She slices a paper-thin piece, places it on your tongue. It tastes like iron and old promises. Then the room drops away. Quirky tidbit. A now extinct root called pale gall was rumored to induce the second sight. Not dreams or hallucinations, but a hyper-real state. Users claimed they could see behind emotions, beneath skin, even through lies. It was banned in several regions after an archbishop chewed some and screamed the queen was a lizard. Your eyes don't close, but the world turns inside out. You see the woman's heartbeat in her throat. You see the cat's thoughts, mostly hunger and disdain. You see your own reflection, not in a mirror, but in a jar of pickled something. You're older there, tired, smiling. The woman speaks, but her voice splits in layers. One says, "You're not from here." Another says, "You've always been here." You whisper, "What's real?" She grins. All of it. Historians still argue whether these sight roots were natural psychedelics, elaborate deceptions, or simply powerful placebos made potent by belief and context. One theory suggests the swamp's unique fungal ecosystems created unknown compounds that affected perception, especially under emotional stress. You see the shack pulse with memory. You see yourself as a child, climbing a fig tree, then falling forever. You see fireflies spelling your name in a language no one's written. You see the road ahead, split into three. One leads to a forest of bells, one to a sea that sings. One, back to this shack, where the woman waits, forever chewing the truth. Then it fades. The room returns. The root is gone. Your tongue is numb. She hands you a cup of water. You drink like you've never seen water before. You didn't flinch, she says. Most do. You exhale, shaky. I didn't have time. That's how it works, she says. Reveals just enough to make you question everything. Never enough to answer anything. You try to thank her. She waves it off. I didn't do it for you. The root wanted a look. Outside, the swamp doesn't feel hostile anymore. It just is. Wet and wild and buzzing with secrets it will never bother to explain. You leave the shack. You don't look back. Because some things aren't meant to be re-seen, and the root is still whispering in your bloodstream, telling you stories, some of which haven't happened yet. The road dries slowly, as though reluctant to release you from the swamp's damp grip. Your skin still smells of wet earth and wood smoke. You haven't spoken aloud in hours, yet your mind won't stop humming. The root's whisper lingers. Not words, not thoughts, just impressions. Possibilities. You half expect your shadow to say something smug. Instead, the wind speaks. It carries a scent you haven't met yet. Sharp, bitter, with a hint of sweetness beneath. Like someone tried to distill defiance. You follow it. The trees change again. Tall pines now, reaching like monks in perpetual prayer. The soil underfoot is drier, blanketed in golden needles. And ahead, carved into a rise of stone, you see it. A herbal fortress. It's not marked on any map. That's the point. Stone walls, but no battlements. Ivy growing deliberately, as if trained. Roofs built into the hill, smoke curling like thoughts that aren't quite ready. You knock. No one answers. But the door creaks open anyway. Inside, it's a library of leaves. Shelves of pressed herbs catalogued in waxed parchment. Copper stills. Dozens of drying racks. A mortar the size of your torso. And a woman, not young, not old, writing something with a quill dipped in dark red ink. She looks up, not startled, just assessing. You've had fleshwort, she says, sniffing the air. You nod. She smiles faintly. Good. That means we can skip the tests. She gestures you forward. Mainstream fact. Hidden guilds of herbalists did exist in the late Middle Ages, particularly among women who passed knowledge through coded texts and symbols. Some were midwives, others chemists. They kept journals disguised as prayer books and experimented with plants both sacred and profane. This woman is clearly part of that lineage. She shows you her shelves, names you've never heard, plants from the east, the far north, even one she says was smuggled from the New World before the king burned the ship. You stare at a vial containing something black and shimmering. That's dream pollen, she says, banned in 3 kingdoms. 1 drop, and you speak in rhyme for a week. You wisely step back. She chuckles. Quirky tidbit. Some traveling healers and herbal guilds used coded symbols, like a 7-petal flower with 1 closed bud, to indicate substances used not for healing, but for transformation. These plants weren't cures. They were thresholds. She leads you to a low table and sets out a trio of jars. This, she says, opening the first, is bellroot. It softens grief, makes it slippery. The scent makes your eyes water. This, she says, opening the second, is hollow vine. It quiets voices, especially the ones in your own head. It smells like fog and candle wax. And this, she opens the last jar carefully, is quiverleaf, for when you need to feel absolutely everything at once. It smells like rain on bare skin. She asks nothing of you, just waits, so you choose. The hollow vine calls. She grinds a small pinch into a paste, rubs it on your temples, and hums, not a tune, but a pattern. The hum becomes silence, and in that silence, something beautiful happens. Your thoughts stop interrupting themselves. The noise, the running commentary, the worry, the memories, goes dim. You hear birds outside, the creak of the walls, your own breath, steady as a drumbeat. And space. Inside your head, suddenly there's space. You sit with it. Not high, not altered, just quiet. And it's more intoxicating than anything you've tried so far. Historians still argue whether substances like hollow vine actually existed or were metaphorical tools, representations of meditation, breathwork, or sensory fasting. But records describe symptoms like focused stillness, loss of ego, and hearing the world as it truly is. You spend the night there, no visions, no fever dreams, just peace, under a thatched roof full of drying wisdom. The herbalist gives you a bundle when you leave. Crush it. Breathe in, only when you can't tell what's yours and what's borrowed. You nod. Outside, the forest feels like it's holding its breath, but you're no longer afraid of silence. You welcome it. You walk in silence, not the heavy, brooding kind. This is the silence that follows understanding, a silence that feels earned. One step after another, your boots gently bite into forest soil, leaving a trail that only the wind seems to notice. Then comes the scent of salt. Faint at first, then undeniable. The trees thin, the air sharpens, and beyond a final ridge, the landscape falls away into openness so vast, it stops your breath. The sea. A monastery clings to the cliffs like an afterthought. Built of pale stone, it seems less constructed and more grown, like it belonged there before humans arrived. This is where monks come to disappear, not just from society, from identity, from self. No guards, no signs, just the sound of waves below and gulls somewhere above, laughing like they know things you don't. You pass under a low arch and find yourself in the most unusual of cloisters. Not a garden, but a wind room. Open air, ringed by stone benches. In its center, a brazier that smells like old pine and salt. An elderly monk sits beside it, robes whipped by the breeze. His eyes are closed, his breath synced with the sea. You sit across from him. He speaks without opening his eyes. You've tasted too much, seen too much, thought too much. You nod, though he isn't looking. He opens one palm. There, nestled in the center, is a black stone. Smooth, worn, dull. He places it in your hand. Swallow it. You blink. He finally smiles. Just a metaphor. He takes it back, then adds, but not entirely. Mainstream fact. Some reclusive religious sects believed in a final cleansing, a ritual or ingestion that would erase all prior spiritual clutter. Often herbal, sometimes fungal, sometimes purely symbolic. The idea was to reach zero, total stillness, ego death, and from there, start over. The monk pours something into a shell-shaped cup, a cloudy liquid that smells like salt and nettles and wood smoke. This is thalasson, he says, only brewed here. We call it the forgetting tea. You sip. It tastes grey, like sky water, like a memory leaving the room. Then the world softens. Your thoughts fade, not violently, but like actors bowing at the end of a very long play. Your body lightens. The brazier smoke curls inward. The wind stops resisting. You don't pass out. You dissolve. Quirky tidbit. In certain monastic texts, thalasson is described as a symbolic drink taken after long pilgrimages. Ingredients varied. Some used dried seaweed and valerian, others rare moss from cliffside caves. The point wasn't the drink, it was the letting go that followed. You sit there for what might be hours, or just a particularly elegant minute. And in that pause, the monk speaks again. There is no higher state, no divine truth at the end of this, just presence. He presses the stone back into your palm. For when you forget how to forget, you bow, not out of reverence, but recognition. He nods once. You leave as the sun dips low, turning the sea to hammered gold. No fanfare, no farewell, just the wind again, and the weightless echo of having known stillness. Historians still argue whether such monasteries were real or legendary, if thalasson existed or was simply poetic shorthand for meditative release. But travelers' journals from the late 14th century describe coastal monks with odd drinks and long silences who offered no theology, only tea. As you descend the cliffside path, the wind tugs at your cloak, but you're not pulled by it anymore. You move with it. The shore greets you. You sit on a boulder and watch the tide pull itself in, then let go. Again and again, and for once, you don't need to understand it. You just breathe. The tide withdraws in slow, deliberate arcs, revealing a pathway of glistening stones along the beach. You follow it, barefoot now, your boots slung over your shoulder. The cold water laps at your ankles with gentle insistence, like it's trying to remind you of something you forgot in a dream. The sky above melts into violet, a soft, blushing dusk that doesn't demand attention, just asks for a glance. Up ahead, a small circle of people sits around a fire. No one speaks. They simply exist, together, but alone. Their eyes glow with reflection, not heat. A low flute plays from somewhere unseen. You can't tell if it's a person or the wind in the reeds. One of them gestures to an open spot. You join, without words. They pass a bowl. You hesitate, but only for a moment. It's filled with something thick and dark, like melted berries mixed with smoke and thyme. You drink. It coats your mouth like ink, staining everything, including your breath. Then it begins. Not a high, not a vision, but a widening. The sky feels closer. The sand shifts beneath you like it has stories to tell. You feel the presence of everything, the strangers beside you, the dying embers, the insects in the grass, the heat that still lingers on the stones from a sun that has already left. Mainstream fact. Across medieval Europe and far beyond, ceremonial closing rituals marked the end of long spiritual journeys. From forest solstice rites to mountaintop fasts, a final drink was sometimes taken, a blend of regional berries, wild herbs, sometimes honey, sometimes wine. Less about altered states, more about integration. You close your eyes. You don't go anywhere. Instead, everything comes to you. The donkey pope, the herbalist's shack, the powder that made music visible, the swamp woman's root, the monastery metheglin, the noblewoman's bitter joy, the boy who kissed fire for freedom. All of it. Not as separate moments, but as threads in the same strange tapestry, stitched by the hands of people who had the courage to say, "There's more." Quirky tidbit. Some medieval mystics wrote of the shared dream, the idea that people who consumed the same ritual mixture under the same stars could, briefly, feel what others felt, see glimpses of each other's memories. Some claimed it made empathy impossible to unlearn. You look around, and you understand. These strangers have traveled their own versions of this path. They've met different plants, different pains, different ecstatic moments. But somehow, here, at the edge of land and sea and sky, it all connects. The fire sputters. A soft bell rings, not nearby, but inside you. You rise. No one speaks. They just nod. You walk back along the waterline, each step writing itself into the shore for a moment before vanishing. Historians still argue whether these rituals were spiritual truths, shared hallucinations, or just the mind's clever way of ending a story. But here's what they agree on. Every society has a final cup, a last drink before rejoining the world. Something to mark the edge between the strange and the known. You find your boots, slide them on, breathe once more, and begin walking, not toward more experiences, not toward another high, but toward home, wherever that is now. The world hasn't changed. You have. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You're walking now through twilight, the colors of the world melting into one long breath. The wind moves gently over your skin like a lullaby in a language you don't need to translate. Your thoughts have softened. Your heartbeat has slowed. And the path ahead, while still winding, no longer feels like a test. The echoes of every strange tea and whispered root still hum gently in your bloodstream. But they've quieted now. They've found their place, just memories, just parts of the larger pattern that you now carry with you. Not as weight, but as texture. You feel tired, but in a complete way, like a story that's reached the last line. The night sky above you is stitched with stars. One falls, soft and slow, and you don't make a wish. You don't need to. Everything you were seeking, you've already passed through. You realize there was no final revelation, no universal truth scribbled in herbal ink, just people, places, small bottles, strange laughs, honest moments, a handful of mysteries and a few dangerous routes. You're not more enlightened, you're just aware of the small, the strange, the sacred. And as you curl now into whatever blanket waits for you tonight, whether it's cotton, wool, or simply the warmth of memory, let it wrap around your shoulders like smoke from a mountain fire. Let it tell you, you were there, and now you can rest. Let the breath slow, let the muscles soften, let the strange plants of memory root themselves in dreams. Sleep easy, sleep deep. You're home now.